Okay, so now that we have our layout figured out, we're going to go ahead and start placing our logos. We're going to make copies of the logos and try to resize them a bit to get them looking good. So let's get going. Alright, so here's my logo. I'm going to go ahead and turn this layer back on by clicking on this little empty box next to the layer, and it will add the eyeball there, and that's telling me that the logo is on now, that layer is on. So initially I'm just going to size it down a little bit, so I'm going to free transform again by hitting Command T, and I'm going to go to the corner and click and drag. Okay, and probably the largest one would be on this one. Alright, sweet. I'm going to hit return. Another way that you can agree to your transformation is to hit this little check mark. Now if you started transforming it and decided for whatever reason you don't like it, you can hit this no and it will take it back to what it was before. So for now I'm going to hit the check mark, and now we have the logo here, and I'm going to go ahead and make copies of this. I'm going to make sure I'm still on my move tool. I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key depending on if you're on a Windows or Mac. It's in the same place next to the command, between command and control. So hold that down, and when I do that you're going to see it creates this little double arrow. It is a little black arrow and then a white arrow behind it. So whenever we do this, what happens is now I can click and drag, and it's going to make a copy of whatever I'm clicking and dragging and leave the original there. So holding down that Alt Option key, I'm going to click and drag. Okay, I'm going to end up putting one there, and then I'm going to click and drag. I can go to this one or this one, and one for the shirt. Sweet. So now I have these three logos. Now I'm going to actually move the layers so that they're right above the photo they're being on, so that later on when I start organizing these layers a little more, it's easier to see what goes where. So this is the t-shirt one, so I'm going to move this right above the t-shirt guy. And then let's see, this one is the wall, so I'm going to move it right above the wall, and then right, turn it on and off. Yep, that's the wall one. And then this one is the one on the phone, so I'm going to click and drag that down here above the phone image. Okay, sweet. So now we're going to go ahead and resize a little bit more. So let's start with this t-shirt one. Now I can look for it specifically here. I can also do the right click right above here, and when I do that you see it has the Ramhead logo layer. I also have the layer that's underneath where I clicked, which is the photo, and then layer one, which is our background white layer. So I want to make sure I'm clicking on the logo. Now you can also, if you like this auto select feature, you can do that. So if I click there, it would auto select the photo. If I click here, it looks like it's doing a nice job of selecting that. So totally up to you. Like I said, I'm old school, so it makes a little more sense for my brain for me to select it. So here we have it. I'm going to go ahead and hit Command T to transform again, to do the free transform. I'm going to pull this in, and if you notice, he is slightly leaning forward and a little bit, well, going opposite on the camera, and this way just a little bit. So I want to make sure I'm matching that with the logo so it looks more natural. I'm actually going to take it in a little bit more. I'm looking at the center of the shirt here and trying to place that with the center of the logo there. Let's take it in a little bit more. Oops. Right, and then I'm just gonna turn it down like that just a little bit. Alright, that's good. And we could see where there's like these little folds happening from the armpits. And so, you know, if the armpits are even, then we want to hit those lines to be hitting the ram's horns in about the same way. Kind of gives us a little bit of a visual clue of how much it should be moving. But yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. So that's placed well there. Now let's look at this here. This is the first one I placed. I think that's a good size, so I'm going to leave that one alone. And now for the phone one, I need to make some decision. Do I want it to be like small in the center? Let's hit Command T to get into transform. So I can make it really small put it in the center of the phone. Looks pretty good. But you know what? I want to show you guys something. So I'm actually going to make it larger than the phone screen, and then I'm going to be showing you how to actually add a layer mask to this. So let me go ahead and zoom in by hitting Command plus a couple times. And then I'm going to move over, switching to my hand tool quickly by holding down the space bar and click and drag. Okay, so here's the middle of the phone. If I wanted to, I can drag a guide over to about the middle of the phone. Well, it's snapping to the middle of this. There's about the middle of the phone. Oh, it's not staying because I think I'm in transform still, so... Oh, there, it appeared. It was just being finicky. Okay, so back to transform. I'm going to hit Command T. And if you hit Command T and the right thing isn't being transformed, it's because you're on the wrong layer. So make sure we're on the right layer. And just using the move tool, I'm going to move this over just a bit. This is interesting. It's not perfectly, the logo is not perfectly centered. I wonder if that was on purpose. Anyways, so that looks like it's about right. Alright, I'm going to hit Command semicolon to get rid of that guide, and then I'm going to hit return to go ahead and keep this transformation. Okay, so next what I need to do is I need to basically cut off the sides of the ram horn so it looks like it's sitting on the screen, right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to make a selection, and I'm actually going to turn this off for a second so I can just focus on this screen. So I'm going to make a selection that fits exactly this screen. Let's start off with the rectangular marquee, and I'm going to try my best to click and then drag to about the right place. Now this phone is just slightly off kilter. You can see we have a little bit of white line here, a little bit of black line there. So I mean, we could sit here and try to turn it a little bit, but I want to show you something that's that helps you get really specific, and it'll come in handy later in the future. So there's a couple different ways I could fix this, but I'm going to show you the slightly more complicated way, just so that, I mean, not complicated, I think you guys went over it in chapter 3, but it makes it's a good thing to know. So let's go ahead and hit Command T to get back into transform. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong. We're actually going to go up here to select and come down here to transform selection. So we're still transforming, we're transforming the selection instead though, so we got to make sure we come to the select menu to do that. Alright, so to just move one point, if you guys remember from chapter 3, you hold down Command and you get this white arrow instead, and now I can move this around freely. So I'm going to now move this to right there in that corner. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a bit more, Command plus, and then to move around I'm going to hold down spacebar and click and drag. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Alright, I think that's working good there. Let's go down here, and again I'm holding down spacebar to bring up that move tool. Alright, and then holding down Command again as I move this one over. Spacebar to move over. Command. That actually looks pretty good. Okay, so now we have this selection. I think that's working better. So let's go ahead and hit the check mark. And now I'm going to turn this layer back on here. I want to make sure I'm on the right Ram's Head logo layer, and what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add a layer mask. Now because I already have a selection, it's going to use that for the layer mask. So right down here is the layer mask button, so I'm going to click on that, and bam, I've got me a layer mask. Now wait a second, something's not looking right. Okay, right over here. Alright, you see that there? So part of the white is still coming over. So there's a couple things we can do. I can make another selection and brush over it, but I think it's just a very small area, so I'm just going to use the brush directly on this layer mask. So layer masks are, it's kind of like when you're, I don't know if you've ever, like, you know, painted your house and painted a wall and you didn't want to, you know, paint the trim, so you have to put some tape along it. So the layer mask is basically doing that. It's just, think of it as a big piece of tape and I've taped off the edges so that the image isn't spilling over where I don't want it. Now the great thing about layer masks versus deleting is that you can always adjust them. You can adjust them multiple ways. Right now I'm going to use the brush tool. I'm going to hit B to bring up my brush tool. And if you notice, this is the mask right here. And it's all black except for a little bit of white. So the black is all the area that's hidden and the white is the part that is being shown. So that means if I want to hide more, I need to be painting with black. So right over here, I've got my foreground and background colors. I want to make sure my foreground color is black. The nice thing about this is already a black and white. I know this because if I hit D, it will turn it to black and white. If I hit X, it will switch the two as foreground and background colors. So I hit D to turn it black and white, X to switch those around. Okay, so now that I have my black up, I can come up in here and what's going on? Why am I... Okay, it's working there. Okay, I just wasn't, I think my brush wasn't... Okay, so I'm at 0% hardness. So that means that I had a really feathered brush. That's what was going on. Okay. So let's go ahead and, so right up here are the layer options. I can change the size and the hardness, the edge hardness of the brush. So I'm just going to turn it up all the way for now. And I'm already thinking that I'm going to have a bit of an issue here. Yep, I am. It's not bad. We're good. We're good. We're good. I'm being a little too finicky. Oops. Sometimes I do that. Nope, that one was fine. I think I'm just seeing things. Too high. Alright, there we go. And if you need to switch back and forth from black and white, you just hit X and it'll switch it right over. These little shortcuts are what's going to make you get faster at Photoshop. So that's why I'm telling you as we go. Okay. Alright, so we have the logos placed. Now they don't look like they're actually there quite yet. I'm going to cover that in the next video.